Hey there. Welcome to the Goal Setting Masterclass for Tability. My name is Wyl Villacres. I'm the head of customer success here at Tability. Today we're going to go through the process of choosing and setting your goals to use inside of Tability. So before we get going too deep into how to set goals, I think it's good for us to level set on really what is a goal. Goals are how we set our directions for the biggest improvements that we want to make for our organization. Goals aren't just the only things that we're working on either. This is going to be really the big things that we're focused on updating and changing. Everything else, the things that are going to be already have metrics that we're looking to target, that we're really going to stick to business as usual, those are more of your KPIs. Goals are going to be our big updates, our big changes, the big things that we want to work on. So really, when we think about it, goals should act as a beacon for your organization. What is the big important information, the big important things that we need to rally around and that we need to work on together in order to get us to that next big step? These are also what is going to allow us to pick the big bets that we want to make as an organization. If we know we're working towards this big goal, I know that the bets that I want to place, the big new features, the big new products, the big new processes, this is what they should all be striving to help. This is the big thing that we're trying to push forward. And this is also going to let us know whether those big bets are paying off. If I'm trying to push us to get more active users, I know that when I make these big bets that are going to drive towards active users, there's a metric behind it that lets me know whether or not that big bet paid off. So this is going to be really allowing us to choose our big battles and figure out what we need to go into to be able to push our whole organization forward. Now, on the flip side of that, goals don't need to capture everything that we're working on. We don't want this to become just this big bloated repository for all of the work that our team is doing. When we're setting goals, not only are we saying that this is the big key information, this is the big key point that we're trying to push forward, but it's also going to help us prioritize our work against those goals. If it's not related to these big, giant goals that we are setting as an organization, it is less important than those big goals. That doesn't mean it's completely not important. We already have ways that we're going to measure that other work, but we're just saying that this is the number one priority. Everything else is going to be then sorted underneath those goals. Now, this is also not a place to worry about sort of perfectly cascading our goals throughout the organization. In fact, generally, organizations that have that perfect cascade, it's going to take them a long time to get their goals written because they're worried about taking our company goals and then having our departmental goals and then the individual team goals and even down into the individual contributor goals, everything needing to be written ahead of time. So we have to have that first layer complete before the second layer can build their goals because we're associating them perfectly with those other goals. So other teams downstream don't have the opportunity to work on goals until we have those big level goals up at the top, and then the next level, and then the next level, and then the next level. Instead, what we want to do is be able to break this down into two different parts. Our top level are our company goals, the big goals that are going to set the North Star for the organization. And then, these are going to be the things that are focused on business growth, our revenue growth, our customer growth, other growth metrics that we're already sort of tracking at that company level. And then underneath that, team level goals. There might be a couple layers of team level goals. There might be one layer of team level goals depending on the size of your organization. If you're working in an organization where you have 15 different engineering teams, you're probably going to have a couple more layers of goals than just engineering goals. But really, when we're thinking about these sort of team level goals, no matter where they're at in the organization, these are the goals that are specific to each team or business unit to improve specific processes or performances for their team. Now, these can be used to fix a specific KPI, to roll out a new process, or just in service of some of those top level goals. So if our top level goal is around revenue, generally our sales team is going to have some sort of revenue related goal to support that, but they might also have an individual process goal. Now, for instance, if they've been missing the revenue targets, a revenue goal might be doing double duty. Not only is it supporting that top level goal, but it's also helping them out with something that they need some specific help with. Now, when we're thinking about these goals and how are we going to set goals and how are we going to get these goals throughout the organization, before we start getting into what goals should we be setting, we need to understand how are we going to structure a goal so that it's not only something that we can say is a rallying point for our organization or for our teams, but it's also something that we can actively use and actively say whether we've done our goal or not. And so the best way to structure a goal is going to have three different parts. The first part is our objective. This is the what. The what are we looking to accomplish? Should be something aspirational that's going to inspire action. This should be something that is going to be able to be accomplished. It's an actionable goal, but it should be something that should be a little bit more inspiring, something that really gets people to want to work on it. So if we're thinking about a revenue goal, we wouldn't want to just set our objective as increased revenue. Yes, that's something that we can rally around. Yes, that's something that we need to do, but there's not really a good reason to dive into that or something that makes you want to sink your teeth into it. So a better objective would be, develop the best sales motion in North America, something that we can really dig into to just say, all right, there's going to be work that I want to do towards that goal because it's inspiring. Yeah, I want to be the best. Let's go be the best. Now, underneath our objectives are going to be outcomes. Now, this is going to be in Tability parlance, but this can be adapted to a lot of different goal-setting methodologies, whether you're using OKRs or other goal-setting methodologies here. But really, our outcomes are just how we're going to measure our success on our objective. So this is going to be really just thinking about if we accomplish all of our outcomes, that means that we have accomplished our objective. So we're really looking for 3 to 5 metric-driven outcomes. And if we're thinking about that same example above of developing the best sales motion in North America, we would make some outcomes that are a little bit more focused on things that are going to say whether we've done that. So increasing the number of qualified leads that are coming into our funnel, the number of conversions that we're getting, deal cycle length, all of these are measurable ways of saying, have we really developed that really amazing sales motion that we want to make? Now, underneath there, it's going to be our initiatives. And this is what is the work that we're doing that is going to help us achieve those outcomes so that we can achieve our objective. This is going to be our tasks or projects. Now, in the course of the quarter that we're going to be looking at setting these goals and working on our goals, our initiatives are going to come, they're going to go. This is where we have a lot of flexibility and freedom to be able to choose projects, to be able to say, oh, we'll use this as an experiment, we'll try this. We might abandon our initiatives halfway through, change them, really be able to move a lot quicker and a lot more updates for our initiatives. While our outcomes are going to be a little bit more fixed, we might learn some things throughout the quarter that might make us want to reassess, but our objectives are generally going to be pretty permanent. So our objectives are really going to be wanting to be those big North Stars, something that we really think about and make concrete. Our objectives, our outcomes, we want to be very specific, very intentional about how we're going to set them. And our initiatives are where we have a little bit more flexibility in what we're going to add in and take out and update and move forward, get blocked, all of that. We want to have it be sort of in that order of what is permanence for this. So now we've got our goal structure. We've got our the different layers of goals that we want to have. It's time to start setting them. And so how do we choose what goals that we're going to track? So generally when we're thinking about how are we going to go into this goal process, it's easiest and best to start at that top level, the top level company goals. So when we're thinking about our company goals, this is going to be where we want to be able to choose our direction for the whole organization. And so generally the best way to go into choosing our first objective and our first goal is to think about where we want to be over the course of 12 months. So by the end of this year, we know that we need to hit this activation metric, or we know that we need to have this many active users in order to push our business forward. And then we can work backwards from there and figure out, all right, based on that, where do we need to be in the next 3 months? This is going to give us a good target for where should we try to push our goals towards to be able to build our business, not just for the immediate future, but even thinking further ahead. How can we use this quarter to be able to increase our outcomes by that end of the year? So this is going to be where we choose some sort of business milestone. So if we know that we have to be here at revenue, here at active users, here at uptime, that's where we're going to want to start to choose our first objectives, those big business milestones. Now, if we are getting stuck into like, well, I got a lot of things to work on. I need to work on everything. I want all of my metrics to be growing. Or, I don't even know what our big milestones should be. We're still in very early stages. This might be a good time to just think about what are the core KPIs that you have as an organization, the biggest ones, the ones that are bringing your attention, each week the most, the ones where you're like, all right, I got to keep an eye on that particular metric. This is a good place to think about, okay, what are the ones that we need to grow rapidly or wildly change or really start to work on really heavily? And this is going to give us a good jumping off point for choosing those business milestones. All right, I really don't like our revenue numbers. I know we have to be at X by the end of the year, so let's be at Y by the end of this quarter, even though it's going to be a pretty big jump for our organization. Now we have something that we can rally around. Now, if we're still having some issues prioritizing, generally this is going to be where that there are a lot of metrics, you want to work on a bunch of them, but we're not trying to set 100 different goals. So what is the big one that we should use? This is a good time to ask your network. Ask your investors, your mentors, your peers. Start to ask around on, well, what did you do to get to X? What should we do to help us get to Y? If you're looking for a new funding round, if you're looking for an IPO, if you're looking for just becoming profitable, where are the places that you need to focus the most in order to get to that point? Ask around to your network. They're going to probably have some ideas of what can work for you or what you should be looking at. And then finally, and this might be the biggest one, is we're not looking to just have goals in order to highlight our business as usual efforts. If we're just setting our business as usual goals, we're probably going to have some easy ways of hitting our goals for the quarter, but that's not going to really help us. We're looking for goals that we can set to rally our team around in order to make a really outsized impact and get us to move to that next level. So if we're just setting these goals that are easy for the team to reach, it's not going to really help us get anywhere. So when we're thinking about how we're going to push our team forward, we can use that example from our objective from earlier. We want to develop the best sales motion in North America. And we can start to work out, all right, that's my big goal. I know that we need to have a better sales motion because we need to have better revenue. So then we can start adding in those pieces for the key results themselves. So if we're thinking about our sales motion, I know one of my outcomes that I want to have, one of the big results I want my team to get is to get $20 million in new revenue. And that's going to be my first outcome that I want to have underneath my objective. But I also need to think about the rest of the sales motion. So I want to increase my number of qualified leads by 12%. I want to improve my conversion rate from 15 to 20%. I want to reduce my deal cycle length by 10 days. We can start to really nail down, all right, this is how we can structure our goal, all because we are thinking really heavily about where do we need to be, where are we going to push our business. Now, once we have our business milestone objective, we've got that one, we've built out a goal around it, we still want to have more than just one goal. Generally for objectives, you're going to have 2 or 3 objectives to really be able to make sure that your team isn't just hyper-focused on one aspect of your business and letting other things slide. And so this is where we want to choose a couple different types of goals to go after. If we already have our business milestone objective, it might be good to also think about improving processes that we already have in place or improving metrics that we're already tracking. Now, this isn't, like I said, it's not just trying to do business as usual stuff. This is where we need to make repairs that are going to be beyond just, okay, we're going to up our KPIs by 5%. This is where we really want to have some big, significant pushes. So when we're thinking about those parts of the business that we can fix, we always like to think about it as part of the customer funnel. And so generally when we're thinking about our funnel, we can break it down into a few different pieces. The beginning, our acquisition, our signups, the people that are coming into our product, our activation, those that are completing that onboarding process, our retention, those that are coming back regularly into our product, referral, are we getting invites? Someone comes to our product, they invite another user, they give us a referral to another organization. How do we grow our total user base? And then finally, revenue. How do we get paying customers and then keep them as paying customers? This is a very simplistic form of a funnel. Yours is probably going to be different, but this is just a nice, easy way of breaking it down into thinking about how do we set goals around this. Now, once we have our sort of stages, we know the different pieces that are going into them. When we're talking about acquisition, it means everything, sales and marketing. We're talking about activation. We're looking at that onboarding process. We're looking at our support processes. Once we have those stages listed out, this is a good time to start thinking about where can we make the biggest impact. And generally, this should be a team sport. So if this is still at the top level and you're really focused on just your leadership team, bring the leadership in, give everyone a couple votes, say 3 votes, and say pick the 3 stages you think we should focus on the most. If we can democratize this, that gives us the opportunity to say, all right, well, everyone should put a vote on one of those stages. Whichever one gets the most votes on it, that's the stage that we're going to spend some time on. That's the one that we're going to work on for this next goal. And we can sort of go stage by stage down from there. So once we have our stage picked, we want to ask ourselves, what is exactly wrong with this stage? Not just, hey, we want to work on acquisition, we want to get more users, but what is not working or what do we really want to improve? And then once we've determined our overall issue, how do we know that it worked? How do we know that we've improved on it? How do we know that this was the right thing to work on and now we have succeeded in getting it to a better place? This is how we write out our objective and our outcomes. So we start with our problem statement. So if we're thinking back to acquisition still being our issue, we're not getting as many signups from our marketing site. We can use that to create an objective that's make our product more irresistible to visitors. Now I have a way of saying, I know what my problem is, I know what my outcome I want it to be, I know what my big goal should be, and then how do I measure whether I've done that or not? Well, I want to increase the time that they're going to spend on the page. I want to increase the number of page views they have. I want to increase conversion. This is all going to give me a sense of whether or not I did that objective. That objective solves my problem. So I'm able to work on my stages like that. Now, the next big piece here is I've sit down, I do that a couple times. I've got all these nice goals written. We want to publish them publicly. Now, for top-level goals, publishing them is for a few fairly standard reasons. Number one, if we want our teams to work on these goals, they need to know what they are. If we're setting goals at the company level and then hiding them or just hoping that our teams are going to work on them, we're going to end up being disappointed. We're going to be ending up confused as to why we haven't made progress. So we want to make sure that these are published for everybody. But beyond that, we also want to give those teams that opportunity to write their own goals. And when we're letting them write their own goals, we want them to know what is that North Star. So if we're saying that we are focused on activation as a company and our customer success organization runs off and they're like, all right, we're going to entirely focus on retention, we know that we have some misalignment there and we need to get them to come back and focus on what we want to as the company. Now, the key here is the word entirely in that sentence. We don't want them to entirely be focused somewhere else. The teams should also feel empowered about working on things that they feel are critical for their department or for their team because they know what they're working on and they know what they're facing as a day-to-day challenge. If they have a big issue with retention and they want to work on retention, it's going to help the organization as a whole. But we also want to say, hey, that's a great thing to work on. We also need to focus on some activation. Is there a place where you can help us with this bigger goal? So once we have everything published, we want to then let the teams start to write their own goals. This is going to make sure not only is it going to be a faster process, it's not one person trying to cascade all of the goals throughout the organization, but it's also going to make sure that the teams are bought into their goals. If they feel like this is something they have ownership with, they're going to be much more likely to want to work on these problems and not feel like a box to check where they can give half effort and focus more of their time on their day-to-day ops. We want them to be really invested in making some significant changes. So writing their own goals is going to be pretty key here. Now, just like when we're setting our company level goals, there should be some guidelines for teams as they're going into writing their team goals. And there should be a good proportion here as well. Generally, I recommend teams have at least one goal that is aligned to a company level goal. Again, looking at some keywords here, at least is a big part of this. They might have all of their goals that are perfectly aligned to company level goals, and that's great. We just don't want to make it an edict. We want it to be something where they have that opportunity. So at least one, all of their objectives can work too, but at least one objective is aligned to some company goal. Now, the other two objectives, if they are just going with one that's aligned to company goals, should be focused on their team-specific issues. So they can sort of choose how they want to approach that, what they want to do here. So if we think about this in practice, with our one aligned goal, let's look at an engineering example. If our company objective is to make the product irresistible to visitors, our engineering objective can be something around enhancing the product's appeal to new users. And again, we just go through that same process. I have a big objective, something that we want to rally around to make our product awesome for those new users. And then it's going to be measured by, UX improvements, our uptime, our automated testing. We want things that are going to make sure that we're giving that good first impression. And these are all things that engineering teams can actually work on that are related to that goal, even while the company is really focused on some of that activation and conversion. The product team is going to be working on just making sure that the underlying infrastructure is there to support it. So it's still a related goal, even if it's not going to be dollar for dollar. It's not the sales team doing revenue. That links up very quickly. It is still something that's very important for this team and for the organization as a whole. Now, once they've written their goal that's aligned, again, they can go off and make their the rest of them up to them. They might have professional development goals for their team that they want to roll out, mentorship goals, who knows, anything that's specific to how they operate and how they want to work. Those are the things that they can continue to build on. And really, once we have worked on all of these goals, we've figured out what we want to work on, they're going to then publish their goals too. Now, it's important to note here that what the goal at this stage should be isn't explicitly everyone has their goals perfectly written and perfectly finalized and everyone's done. Ideal if everyone gets their first draft knocked out of the park, but this is a first draft of goals because there's a second part that we can have to this process that gives us just one additional option for improving how we're going to go into the actual goal tracking at the beginning of the quarter as we get into the goals themselves. And that next big piece is to have teams look at each other's goals and figure out the relationships that exist between them. So once I get all of my goals published, I want to have them public so that everyone can see them. I want to keep them public the entire time so that we have that level of accountability, but we can also have that ability to collaborate. If I see that we're working on something very similar, the sales team, the customer success team are both doing revenue goals. We know we have a new feature. We're going to have to write, new battle cards. We're going to have very specific value props that we're going to be talking about. I want those teams to know that they're working on something together, or at least something that's very related, so that they can combine efforts. If we're going to write up that battle card, let's get someone from the customer success team who's been talking to existing customers and figuring out what works for them, that the sales team can then take to go cold contact and say, hey, I know that you're looking to improve this process or you're looking for this. Our existing customers have already told us that this is something they find really useful. So we have some opportunities for that overlap. It also is going to be able to prevent duplicate or contradictory work. If our product team is going off to design brand new features and our engineering team is expecting there to be a bunch of, user experience improvements, those are going to be misaligned goals. They're going to be sitting around waiting, not able to hit their goal. The product team's going to be making something where the engineering team is not going to be ready to build it. We want to make sure that they have the opportunity to know what each other plan on working on and then can update and connect accordingly. Now, this might inspire different goals. It might inspire updated goals. That's totally okay. It's why we want to have this process up ahead of time so that our teams are able to say, oh, I should change this, or, oh, great, we can connect our goals here and we can make sure that they're linked and we can have that relationship here. Now, one word on relationships. A lot of times when we think about relationships in goals, we're really only thinking of parent and dependent relationships. This goal needs to be accomplished in order for this goal to be accomplished. That's not the only relationships you're going to have in your goals. Those are important as well, but we also want to have the sort of just related goals be linked as well. So going back to my sales and customer success teams, we want those to be shown that connection so that we can jump back and forth. If the customer success team is just absolutely knocking it out of the park when it comes to getting expansion revenue and our sales team is really lacking, we want them to be able to quickly see what is the customer success team doing that's working so well so that we can borrow ideas so that we can get into this a little bit easier so that we can collaborate on this. Same vice versa. If the sales team has figured out that value prop, we don't want the customer success team to be losing out on that information. We want everyone to have it and be able to really work on their goals together. Now, once we've got our relationships down, teams go off, they make some changes to their goals if necessary. The last step is going to be to track their progress. Throughout the quarter, they're going to be updating that progress and keeping tabs on those relationships, knowing that we've already established our North Star and we're all moving in the right direction together. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about the actual goal execution in a little bit, but if there are any questions on goal setting and on how to do goal setting inside of Tability, please don't hesitate to reach out. There's the messenger in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen where you can always reach out to us and we're happy to help. Or if you prefer to reach out to us via email, we're at support@tability.io. So feel free to reach out with any questions about goals, how to set them, how to do it in Tability. We're always happy to chat through them. If there's anything else, let us know. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day.